End of the day, America is going to want a president who is a decent human being, who doesn't shit on other people, who has some interest in the American people, some interest in something beyond himself. I think at the end of the day, people are going to reject this bigoted, divisive figure.
So I'm just giving you the answer to the question you're asking all night long. Why do they vote for Donald Trump? It's not always because they like him. It's because stuff like that is kookier to them.
Totally roasting the California senator for his hopeless war against Donald Trump. The takedown was so savage, I wouldn't be shocked if Schiff ghosted Maher's show for good. If you love this kind of spicy content, smash that like button and subscribe so you never miss a moment like this.
I think it's true justice. The only thing he cares about is himself and money. And going after the money is a way to bring about some real justice.
Adam Schiff kicked off the evening with his usual barrage of attacks against Donald Trump, painting him as a self-absorbed narcissist who, in his words, cared little about anything or anyone beyond himself. Schiff doubled down, insisting that Trump was unequivocally guilty of the accusations stacked against him and declaring he was wholly unfit to lead the country. With dramatic flair, Schiff portrayed Trump as a looming threat to democracy itself, warning that his return to power would spell disaster for the nation. It was classic Schiff, heavy on the accusations, light on the evidence, and loaded with political theater. But the worst was yet to come. Schiff made a statement that'll come back to haunt him.
Sharing your pessimism about this or your pessimism about the general election, the reason why Joe Biden is going to beat Donald Trump is because at the end of the day, America is going to want a president who is a decent human being, who doesn't shit on other people, who has some interest in the American people, some interest in something beyond himself. I think at the end of the day, people are going to reject this bigoted, divisive figure.
Continued his tirade against Donald Trump, hurling every insult he could think of in a desperate attempt to discredit him. But the part that's probably making Schiff squirm the most right now is his bold prediction that Joe Biden would easily win the election. Well, fast forward to today, and those words have spectacularly backfired because Donald Trump is now the president. Schiff's confident boasts have aged like milk, leaving him looking foolish and scrambling for excuses. It's a classic case of political karma playing out in real time, and watching it unfold has been nothing short of delicious. Meanwhile, Schiff's rant was clearly starting to wear on Bill Maher and Stephen A. Smith. Maher kept his cool, barely, but Stephen couldn't resist letting loose.
Getting tired of seeing so much stuff targeted in his direction, but somehow, some way, he still survives. I mean, we're talking about a situation where he's still going to be the GOP nominee. He's still going to be running for president. You're President Biden. That's the individual that you're going to have to beat. 4 indictments, 91 counts. They ain't even bringing up the bankruptcies. Ain't even bringing up this particular issue with this civil case. And somehow, some way, he puts cats to shame because he clearly has more than 9 lives.
Maher steps into the ring. Stephen A. Smith throws down the gauntlet. He doesn't hold back, calling out Adam Schiff and his political allies for their relentless, years-long crusade to bury Donald Trump. They've thrown everything at him. Media smears, endless investigations, rehashed scandals from decades ago, and wild comparisons to history's worst villains. They've called him Hitler, labeled him a threat to democracy, and hurled every accusation imaginable. Yet somehow, Trump has not only survived, he's thrived. Against all odds, he's still standing, stronger and more defiant than ever. Trump remains the riddle the Democrats and their media enablers can't crack. Every time they think they've taken him down for good, he bounces back even bigger. Love him or hate him, Trump has become the political phenomenon they simply can't figure out. And that reality clearly drives them crazy. Tired of the anti-Trump rhetoric all night, Maher entered the ring, and it was a demolition spree.
He put out an article last year, and it was called "Separating Sports by Sex Doesn't Make Sense." Right. And talked about how we separate sports like the WNBA and the just because it's just socialization. This is insane.
I agree.
Okay. That's why people vote for Trump. Mm-hmm. Because there's stuff like that on the left that people just go, I know Trump's horrible, but separating by sports by sex makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. And if you think it doesn't, you can't lead the country.
Maher wasted no time getting straight to the point, telling Adam Schiff exactly why people continue to vote for Donald Trump. He didn't sugarcoat it either. Maher called out the Democrats' empty policies, their tone-deaf ideologies, and their growing disconnect from everyday Americans as the very reasons Trump's appeal keeps growing. One glaring example, the Democrats push to erase the biological differences between men and women in sports, insisting they compete in the same categories. To many Americans, it was not just absurd, it was insulting to basic common sense. Yet instead of listening to widespread public backlash, Democrats doubled down, dismissing concerns as bigotry and digging themselves deeper into a hole. Maher argued that this kind of ideological extremism doesn't win hearts or minds, it alienates people. It pushes voters, even reluctant ones, straight into Trump's camp, because when given a choice between chaos and someone who at least sounds like they care about reality, voters are going to pick the latter every time.
Schiff, given the ongoing political tensions and Trump's actions toward his critics, do you think President Biden's preemptive pardons turned out to be more important than initially expected? Let's first tell people what that means, preemptive pardons. That was pretty unprecedented, right? Before he left office, Joe Biden pardoned you and a number of people who he thought Trump would go after.
No, I take the opposite view. I don't think he should have given the pardons at all.
Really?
No, I don't think he should have, and I was vocal about that at the time.
Can you refuse a pardon?
That's less clear because in the case of the January 6th committee, he pardoned essentially the whole committee.
Did Senator Adam Schiff just throw President Biden under the bus? Because it sure sounded like it. Schiff, who was knee-deep in the infamous January 6th committee, conveniently received a pardon for his involvement, along with several others who were part of the panel that pointed fingers and declared certain individuals liable for the Capitol chaos. But here's where it gets interesting. If the committee's actions were above board, if their conclusions were ironclad and just, then why did Biden feel the need to issue preemptive pardons in the first place? And now, Schiff is out here acting like the pardon was unnecessary, subtly suggesting that Biden made a mistake without saying it outright. But the subtext is loud and clear. In an effort to distance himself from the political fallout, Schiff is essentially casting doubt on the very man who protected him. It's classic Washington maneuvering. Take the cover when it's convenient, then deny it when it gets messy. Schiff may think he's being slick, but the cracks are starting to show, and Biden's team can't be thrilled about the implications. Anyway, Bill Maher calls him out for it and calls out mainstream media for their biased reporting.
And arrested the judge. Now, I haven't heard that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I've ever read arrested a judge. So is this significant?
Well, I think
I'm not going to comment on something I don't know more about than what you've just told me.
You read about it too.
Yeah, I mean, I read about it, but I don't know.
So you don't trust anything either, and you work for the New York Times.
Well,
Even Brett Stevens, a New York Times employee, can't fully trust his own publication for accurate reporting. Let that sink in. When the very people inside the newsroom are questioning the credibility of their own headlines, you know something is seriously wrong. This is exactly why Trump and millions of Americans have turned to independent and alternative media for the truth. The sad reality is, it feels like every major news outlet in the country has been compromised, especially by the left. Once proud institutions that were supposed to hold power accountable have morphed into partisan mouthpieces, more interested in pushing narratives than reporting facts. It's disheartening, to say the least. Journalism, once a noble pursuit, has been reduced to little more than political theater, and every time another crack appears in the old media facade, it only confirms what many of us have known for years. If you want the truth, you have to go outside the establishment to find it.
Schools are popular now, even with people who aren't Catholic. It's the last place you can send your kid to get an old school education. And they just tell the kids, forget about the Jesus stuff. Just, to them, that's okay indoctrination, as opposed to some of the other indoctrination that goes on. And also, the Catholics don't put up with bullshit. They take your phone. You have to learn your P's and Q's and your grammar and all this kind of stuff. And that's what I just don't understand, that parents don't have the whip hand anymore. Not that you should actually use a whip. And I don't have kids, so I don't know that firsthand, but every movie and TV show that has a teenager in it cannot be mischaracterizing this. And the kids they don't listen to their parents. They turn their back on them. They walk out of the room. Things that would just get me shut down when I was
was a kid.
Know exactly when everything Maher is describing began to unravel, when the Democrats fully embraced woke ideology and tossed morality and common sense straight out the window. That's when the cultural shift took a nosedive. Suddenly, children were treated like miniature adults, and parents, especially fathers, were portrayed as clueless, outdated buffoons. Family TV shows became breeding grounds for this narrative. The dopey dad, the mildly competent mom, and the precocious kid who somehow knew more than both parents combined. It was subtle, but it was everywhere. Over time, it stopped being entertainment and started becoming indoctrination. And the result, a generation of entitled, spoiled kids who think authority is a joke and accountability is optional. Discipline became taboo, boundaries were erased, and respect for family structure crumbled. What was once a moral compass guiding society has been replaced by performative progressivism, and we're now living with the consequences. These things led to the loss of the 2024 elections. Listen to what one of their own said in a lead-up to the elections.
I respect the fact that you don't share my pessimism. I truly do. I understand where you're coming from. But I think that's part of the problem. I think the Democratic Party should share my pessimism. I think they should be on high alert. I think they need to treat him with the seriousness that it deserves, because you're having a lot of faith in the American people. The man did get over 74 million votes. You've got people that are looking at Joe Biden. I'm not going to call him a cognitive mess or anything like that. That's very disrespectful. I would never speak about our president that way. But when you're 82 years of age, it's not offensive to say you're no longer a spring chicken and you don't seem to have.
From their bizarre ideologies, Schiff and his allies spent years trying to convince the American public that Joe Biden was mentally fit to run the country. Despite growing concerns and repeated warnings from both sides of the aisle, they stubbornly pushed forward, shielding him from criticism and brushing off obvious signs of cognitive decline. They told us everything was fine. It wasn't. By the time reality set in, it was too late. When it became painfully clear that Biden couldn't lead them to the promised land, panic set in. Their brilliant solution, Kamala Harris. In a desperate attempt to salvage their credibility, they elevated her only to discover it was one of the worst political miscalculations they've ever made. Her approval ratings plummeted. Her public appearances became liabilities, and her leadership, if you can call it that, only made things worse. The party that once prided itself on strategy had suddenly run out of moves. Now, they're stuck cleaning up a mess of their own making. At the end of the day, the Democrats are reaping what they sowed. From pushing woke ideologies and sidelining common sense, to backing a clearly unfit president and fumbling with Kamala Harris as a last-ditch effort, they've alienated the very voters they claim to represent. Bill Maher and Stephen A. Smith's frustration reflects a larger awakening. Americans are tired of being gaslit. They're done with the media spin, the political theater, and the endless deflection. Donald Trump's resilience isn't just about him. It's about a nation pushing back against a broken system. The left tried to control the narrative, but reality spoke louder. And now, even their own voices are starting to question everything they once defended. And this brings us to the end of today's video. If you loved it, then hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.